Hello, and welcome to Spotlight On, the podcast that brings together business leaders, entrepreneurs, and experts covering a range of topics. I'm Nicholas Barton, founder and CEO of the Barton Partnership. We're an award-winning executive recruitment and consulting solutions firm providing permanent search and independent consulting services across strategy, sustainability and M&A, data and analytics, and transformation and change.
Today, I'm excited to welcome Sasha Watson. Sasha sits on the group leadership team at Moonpig and is responsible for all HR workplace and most recently has taken co-ownership of sustainability. Prior to Moonpig, she worked with Cambridge technology company Arm as VP Employee Experience. Before joining Arm, Sasha was head of internal communications in the retail business at Barclays Bank and previously director of internal and external communications for Europe, Middle East and Africa at SAP. Sasha, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Can you start by telling us about your career journey and what drove you to get to where you are today?
Sure. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I think I'll start by saying, like I think most people, I didn't plan to get here at all, actually. I just worked hard and felt really clear as I was growing up that I wanted to be quote unquote successful. And I didn't know what that looked like. You know, I come from very humble beginnings. I was raised by an incredible single mother and grew up in quite a rough area, but I think that's character building. Certainly is for the corporate world.
Yes.
And I think I really did follow my heart, although I didn't know it at the time. When I look back, I followed what felt right. And I think that with huge drive and determination and not really accepting no and can't, I put myself through university. I was the first in my family to go through university. So I went and got a job and paid fees myself. And I didn't even know about Oxbridge and Russell Group either. I literally went to university because of the commute and distance to stay home. So drive, determination. I took opportunities where they came. I didn't take no for an answer. I put myself out there. I said yes lots. I failed and tried again. And I think, you know, where I got to where I am today is I just followed my nose because I love people. And it just led me to a career in HR, which actually my second career, I started in communications and PR. So I followed my heart, but I also worked hard.
It's really good to hear. And I'm a bit blown away by the fact that you put yourself through university and all that stuff. But that's a story that a lot of people share. It's not unknown. It seems to be the way for a lot of people. The board at Moonpig has committed to increasing the combined representation of women and ethnic minorities in the extended leadership team to at least have 50% by 2025.
Yes.
Can you share some of the strategies and initiatives you are implementing to help achieve this goal?
Sure. And look, I was front and center in setting that goal because it's very important that we have parity, not just gender, which is very important. Of course it is. I can say that as a woman, but also other types of diversity. And we have chosen ethnicity and gender because they are the marked diverse groups that are missing from leadership teams. There are other diverse groups that are also missing, but we started with those because they are the ones missing. So I think the first strategy for anyone is around, you know, data and measurement. You know, the first thing we did was take a good look at what is our baseline, where are we, and how do we track that measurement over the years to 2025? And we are doing very well, you know, first proper year in after setting that goal. Another strategy is around having our eye on future upcoming leaders. It's not all about the people in the seat right now. It's actually about the talent that's growing that you might want to give an opportunity to in 2 or 3 years' time. And it's actually starting leadership journeys earlier. That's been a real thing that I focused on this year. I've set some hard rules, frankly, around vacancies. So if we get vacancies in senior positions, you know, we try and fill those vacancies with diverse candidates. And that is harder and it takes longer and sometimes it's more expensive, but that's just how it is. I have an incredible talent acquisition team who have brought in some incredible talent, but certainly, you know, that's an easy one, right? You get a vacancy, you get a seat or you create a new role. set yourself the challenge of making sure that's a direct hire. And then I think it's around, internally and externally, focusing on whatever minority groups that are important to you and making sure you are being inclusive of those groups and showing possibilities inside and outside of your organization. But also, there are some parts of our development programs that are a little bit more tailored towards females and tackling challenges that females more often encounter. I say not always, just more often. Like, we've done some work recently around confidence, and we invited everyone, but we said, actually, more women suffer with this. So this is focused on women, but please, everyone come along. And we were delighted that lots of our other male and non-binary colleagues joined too. So those are just a few things that I've done and will continue to do to reach that goal.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that confidence thing comes up a lot actually for women.
Yes.
So it's great that you're recognising that and doing sessions around that. So what does inclusion mean to you? And what, in your view, should business leaders be doing to nurture a more diverse and more inclusive workforce?
So I'll start with what it means to me. So, there's that very famous Verna Myers quote around, diversity is being asked to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance. Very famous quote. And I took the liberty, I'm sure she wouldn't mind, of evolving that for myself, because it's really important. I think that quote is a baseline, but I think the world has moved on and what we need from inclusion has moved on. So I've evolved it to say inclusion is being asked to the party. So getting the invitation for me is about being included. Diversity is having everyone's favorite tune played. And equality is having the opportunity and choice to dance. And the reason I say those things is I think inclusion is just being at the party. I don't think that's the diversity piece at all. And so I mean, I can keep going with that analogy, but I just love that quote as a baseline.
Yeah.
That, I evolved that because inclusion to me is being invited in and feeling part of that. And then when you're there, the diversity is around hearing all the different types of music. And then actually the equality is saying, I'm just here to sit and chat, or I'm here to dance, or I'm here to whatever, right? So that's how I see it. In a workplace context, is inclusion has been about having the opportunity to be what you want to be in the organization, be it that top table, be it running a function, be it actually just doing a really good job and staying at your level. For me, that's really important around inclusion.
Love that saying. Yeah, I love the way you've evolved it, definitely, as well.
Yeah, I'm sure she won't mind.
No, definitely not. You're right. It has moved on, and it is very different from when people look at it earlier on. So it's great that you're recognising that.
In terms of leadership action, the second part of your question, there's so much buzz, especially the past 12 months, around diversity, equality and inclusion. The first thing I would say that's really stark is, when leaders taking action, mean it, genuinely mean it. You have to be able to deliver wholeheartedly and genuinely on your pledges. Again, like my other point around representation is around measurement, publishing and pledging. So make sure you can measure success, make sure you share what you are doing, even if that's just with your population, so they understand what's important, but make sure you make some pledges, like put a stake in the ground and really mean it. Like what does inclusion mean in your organization and what can you deliver on? I think it's also around having accountability at the right level. I've seen so many LinkedIn profiles of chief diversity officers being hired that are tucked away, usually in HR. That's not the right level of accountability and autonomy for that person, in my view, to make a difference. I think the other thing around, two last points for leaders, is do what you have to do, but also do what you should do. Like so many organizations I see make these pledges and I say, well, of course you should do that. And of course, because you have to, but what actually should you do? What's the right thing from a moral lens for you to do from your organization? And then I guess the last thing is, don't think hiring a person of color fixes D&I. It does not. I'll go back to point number one, that take action and mean it. And just hiring that person isn't enough. You've got to do more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So in your role at Moonpig, you have recently taken co-ownership of sustainability, which is a big ticket item for everyone. What does that look like in your organisation? And can you share some insight into how Moonpig are prioritising sustainability within the business, please?
So I think if I think back to my previous point, one of the big steps we've made is to make some very big commitments and very big public commitments, because we're taking this very seriously. We're early in our journey, but the great thing about this journey was when we looked back at what we'd achieved, we had achieved a lot more than we appreciated just by the way we operated. So the way we do it is it's a collaboration actually across a couple of people, so the person that looks after the E and the environment is our operations team. And they're really focused on our impact on natural resources. And that's for, our cards, our packaging, using Royal Mail, everything around our impact on natural resources. And then I work hand on hand on the S and the social part and look at the impact that we're having on our people, on our local communities, but also in wider society. And there's wider society is, one, there's a lack of diversity in tech, and we're a tech business. But two, the whole ethos of our company is around the well-being in society. There's a lot we do with mind and around mental health and, well-being in society. And then the governance and responsibility part is also led by another board member. And the three of us come together to make sure that we are pulling all those three levers and doing the right things and report together on those. And it just works really well because each of us brings that diversity of thought, that lens appropriate, which is so good to challenge one another too. So it's an exciting part of our journey, and I'm delighted to be part of it. It's a personal passion, so I'm super happy to have a stake in that agenda.
Yeah, no, you can see it coming out of you. Moonpig has built a culture around positivity, playfulness, and connection, and you're living and breathing it, no doubt. How did you maintain this when shifting to a remote and hybrid workplace?
I mean, it was not easy, but I'm delighted that across the past 2 years, there's been no playbook for any leader around how do you navigate the changes we've had to make. But we've been able to hire over 100 people. We've been able to increase our engagement scores in spite of what we've been through. And you can imagine a high demand for our services across this time. So I guess we have, if I think about the buckets of activity, there's the connectedness. So we have made sure that we have remained connected, be that in person when that was possible, but also virtually. And we all got to that point where we're like, okay, no more yoga and pub quizzes on Zoom, but certainly we stayed connected, professionally and personally. So, we had a completely virtual strategy day, which was, of course, important to deliver important business messages, but we had a lot of fun. And each of us as a leadership team took on a character to play a part. And we did the whole thing as like a news broadcast, and we had a lot of fun. But we also had that event virtually and in person this year. But then we have sort of coffee drop-ins, right? We have an open Zoom call where people can just drop in with, a hot drink and what's on your mind. And sometimes I join, sometimes I don't. Sometimes 6 people join, sometimes 60 people join. But I think it's about connectedness. I think the other piece that we've managed to maintain, though, is around communication. The important thing is dialing up communication. Yeah. And if you say it once on email, say it on other channels, say it in person, and then write it down again. That's been super important, I think. And I think it's around, we've looked at key points in our employer life cycle journey, and when do we need to turn the volume up around communication and connectedness? Like onboarding, we had to onboard people remotely, so we looked at that very quickly. Getting people, new starters on board, having our we used to have a weekly all hands, as a hybrid meeting where we'd some of us be in the office, some of us would be at home. That's now and will forever be fully remote. So actually, wherever you are, you always feel connected to that weekly company meeting. So yeah, there's been a whole mixture of things. But I'm so delighted that, the end results are we still hired some incredible people and our engagement continues to remain super high. So it seems to be working, and long may it continue as we go into whatever this next phase of working is.
Yeah, no, I know for our firm, I feel we've come out much stronger, and it sounds like for you guys as well, you've actually risen to the occasion and actually come out as better across everything because you've had to kind of thing. So it's good to hear. Many organisations right now are struggling with the Great Resignation, and we can definitely see that in the movement of people now deciding whether they want to stay or go and move on. I'd love to get your perspective on what leaders can be doing to better drive retention within their businesses, particularly in relation to diverse talent.
Yeah, so I read an article yesterday that said, is the Great Resignation media hype? And I was like, yeah, kind of, but we are definitely in a time where there are more jobs than great candidates. I think that is very true. But I don't know, I think that's also because, one, a load of new organizations have been built. Two, a load of organizations have had to add on to their proposition and go digital because they've been forced to. So there were just more jobs in the same companies. But I think three, people have taken real stock of their lives and said, I want to do something different. And many people are taking the opportunity to do the you only live once leap of faith and go do something different. So I definitely think we're in a time where there's a war for talent. For what leaders can do and what we are doing is you've got to create a great place to work. Offering a great salary, etc., is one thing, of course. But for me, when I talk to people about why they come or why they might want to leave Moonpig, it's because we've created a great place that people want to work. And it's about the culture, the colleagues, but also they come and work on great stuff. It's an organization where, we had someone who was a lawyer come and join that thought, actually, I don't know if I'm passionate about this anymore. And she's moved into our security business. So it's about creating a workplace that not only people are able to thrive, but they're able to truly grow. And if you can make that happen inside your organization, if you look at your data of why people are leaving, it's very telling. If you can create those opportunities inside your organization, that goes a long way, I have found. And we've retained some great people by giving them the next chapter inside the organization. And I think it's around, really thinking about your value proposition. Can you answer the question as a leader? What does it feel like to work in your organization? What does it feel like to be a leader? What does it feel like to work in your organization, where you don't have the autonomy and the power to make a quick decision? Because again, you get some really good insight into why people want to stay and how you can be competitive. When you've got a great candidate that's got many options, the way you're competitive is, this is what it's going to feel like working. And I think the last thing is, great people may leave, let them come back. I'm so happy we've had a few boomerangs where people want to go and try a different industry or whatever, but leave the door open for great people because they will come back. Don't be annoyed when someone wants to go and grow. Like, that means you've done a great job, and let them come back.
So you are the chair of trustees for the charity Future Men. Can you talk a bit around that and about the charity and what your role is within that, please?
So, the charity is called Future Men, and it's been going for, 20 plus years. And it was born around, it used to be called Working with Men, but it's born around helping boys and men navigate the challenges of being a boy and a man in modern society. And, I'm a female, I'm a huge advocate of issues of female, but the reason this is important to me, a few reasons, is if you think about suicide is the biggest killer for men under 45. Men also historically have very poor help-seeking behaviours. Men are more likely to be in prison, killed, excluded from school, homeless. And when you overlay that on the populations, just in the UK, of the disadvantaged, the underrepresented and the underserved, many of those roads lead back to men and boys. So it's really important to me, as I'm one of 6, the other 5 are brothers. So I have lived and breathed and had firsthand experiences of some of the challenges that boys and men have, navigating society. So that's why it's really important to me personally, and why it should be important to everyone, because men get a bad rep, but it is not easy, being male. And I say that, and it's controversial, but it is absolutely true. The data doesn't lie. And my role as chair of the trustee board is not as hands-on as it used to be. I've had association with this charity for about 13 years. I started as a volunteer. And I sort of, I guess, have just stuck and risen up the ranks as a volunteer. But it's really around the strategy and how can we grow our impact? How can we increase funding? How can we work with organisations? And I'm happy for anyone to reach out if they think there's some synergies there around what we can do together, especially corporates, please. It's really around supporting the strategy and development so we can continue to support men and boys, which actually gives us a healthier society.
And finally, what advice would you give to the next generation of women starting out in their careers and perhaps already on that road?
Well, I am mother to an incredible 10-year-old girl. So who I am determined and convinced will rule the world one day. Like, wow, I love this next generation coming through and the fearlessness.
Yes.
Just incredible. And look, I will just share what I talked to her about. One piece of advice is never stop learning and never lose that muscle around the ability to learn. That's what keeps you relevant and employable and just helps enrich you. So never stop learning. Don't be afraid to try and fail. It's very, very important that I always see failure as a learning opportunity, which might sound very, very airy-fairy, but I genuinely say, right, that did not go well. Why didn't it go well? What can I do next time? It's so energizing and enriching. I say that to my daughter. Never be done. So I always say to her, all right, you finished that. What else could you do? And that, I think, is such a good work ethic, right? It's not about hours in the day. It's you've completed a thought, a piece of work, a presentation. What else could you have done? Back to that always learning, right? Always enriching. Yeah. You don't need to do one thing. So when I was growing up, many, many years ago, there was I want to be an X. I've said to my daughter, you don't have to do one thing. You can, she wants to be in musical theatre and design computer games. I said, you can do both. Why can't you do both? It's fine. There's 7 days in a week. You don't have to do one thing. I think that's really important for young generations to think about. You do not have to do one thing. And why we bind ourselves in one thing is beyond me. Know your value. Again, I'm raising a young woman of colour. So it's extremely important to me that she knows her value. And again, I'd say that to all younger generation. But I am not talking about I am worth £40,000. I'm talking about what skills, experience, behaviours, value you're going to bring. And then the important lesson here is work hard to keep that value. Know your value, work hard to keep it. And I guess my 2 last points is 1, build your network. I've got many work friends from, my late teens and from my first job and early 20s that could become your business partner. Yeah. So build your network. And then my last point for any young person and frankly, any human is it costs nothing to be polite, kind and nice. It costs nothing. So never forget that.
Oh, thank you, Sasha. It's been such a joy to listen to. And there's a lot of wise words there, definitely. Thank you. I'm really, really pleased that you did it with us. I'm really pleased.